Today on Untapped, double Olympic champion swimmer Tom Dean pulls back the curtain on the incredible science behind training at the highest level, and we discuss the controversial enhanced games. A bit of context, we recorded this just after we'd spent the morning racing each other in his home pool. You'll hear us reference a chicken costume, so if you want to know what that's all about, head over to our YouTube channel. For now, let's get untapped with Tom Dean.
I feel silly for painting the Olympic rings on my chest now.
Are they going to come off?
Yeah, I'm not an Olympian.
Was it not permanent marker? I'm going to stay on for a while.
Will it? Yeah.
It looked good though.
I think it was a nice job. Nice idea.
Credit to the artist.
That last 50
Yes.
was rough.
That was tough. We had done 350s all out on the trot at that point.
So what's happening to me at that stage?
So the kind of training we did there, how long do we have? A few minutes in between? So that's kind of like a typical lactate tolerance there. Okay, so you go all out for 50 meters, and you have a few minutes, you just stand there and you don't recover, you don't swim. So we do things like swim down, like cool down essentially to flush out all the lactic acid. So what we'll do there, we might do 10, 12, 15, 50-meter efforts all out as hard as you possibly can. And then you just have to sit there for a few minutes and let the lactic acid build up and then go again and go again. And my coach always says either, you win or the lactic acid wins, and it's making sure that you win. So the times stay quick and you get a really high spike in lactic acid. So they'll prick your ear through the course of the set and they'll say, right, your lactic acid's at 11 millimoles per whatever, or 14 or 16 or 18. You want to get it as high as possible and keep the times up. They are the worst sessions ever. So we did 3 there and with quite a long time in between. If you do 12 or 15 or 16 50s with maybe a minute or two in between, honestly, it's like a war scene. There's people just like sprawled out everywhere, people being sick into bins. It's like the top tier, peak of the pyramid of training pretty much.
And the idea is you're trying to become as uncomfortable as possible, trying to get your lactic acid as high as possible, just so that when you do feel lactic acid build up in, say, a 200-meter relay, you're used to it and you can push through it, and it's kind of building that resilience in the water.
Yeah, pretty much. So my event's about 1 minute and 45 seconds at 200 meters. So it's a lot quicker. If you're training for an endurance event, you probably wouldn't do training like that. So it's slightly different. But, we need to know that when we get onto that last 50 of a 200 meter race and everything in your body's locking up and you've gone all out, 1 minute and 16 seconds, you've got the last length to go. You need to be able to still hold quick times, good form, and be comfortable with that massive amount of pain. Because when your muscles lock up, that's your lactic acid. That's your body just, reacting to the anaerobic exercise. So if we can train to be able to still hit quick times when you have a really high blood lactic acid level, then that's supposed to help you on the back end. But it's not without a massive base of aerobic engine work, and then you build the top of the pyramid. They're the sets that I get like so nervous for the night before. And I know I've got like one on a Thursday night and one on a Tuesday morning or something. And I lie there on Sunday night and I'm like, oh God, it's gonna be a tough week.
Yeah, so it's similar to running. You have to swim slow to swim fast.
Exactly. Yeah. So we do, I've been swimming. So we're in Maidenhead now. So I grew up swimming at this swimming club, Maidenhead Marlin Swimming Club. And I started when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I'm just turned 25 now. So I've done over 15 years of just building the engine. So 2 hours in the morning before school, 2 hours after school, thousands of meters, 5, 6, 7,000 meters a session. So, 10, 12,000 meters every day for about 15 years. And that builds the engine. So it's just years of aerobic training. So I know that my aerobic capacity is going to be quite large. And then it allows you to do more work in the threshold zone. And, I don't want to get too technical and stuff, but it's going to be helpful for your training as well. But, when you're working that threshold zone, so you're between like the aerobic and the anaerobic. So your body that's essentially where your body's removing the lactic acid just as quick as you're producing it. So we might do 3,000 meters just on the cusp. And if you push it a bit too much, you see people drop right off. And then people who aren't quite up there are not going to get the same kind of training benefits. So we do a lot of threshold work. And then we do those real peak sessions. Like, we got a little bit of a taste in the pool a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I love... Firstly, I love all the data and the kind of science behind it. And we're doing a little bit more of that on this show now. It's one of the reasons I was so looking forward to talking to you, because you're known for being very technical, very disciplined, very data-driven. Just coming back to that kind of base fitness, the anaerobic stuff becoming easier when you have a higher level of base fitness. So in your 200 meters, which is your preferred event?
Yep.
So 200 meter freestyle, front crawl.
Yep.
What would be your average heart rate over 200 meters. And is that so I assume you're at threshold for the entire thing. Obviously, you're not strategizing a 200 meter, are you? Or are you pushing at about 90%?
It's a really good question, actually. So for people who aren't super into their swimming, a 200 meter freestyle is basically the same as an 800 meter run.
Okay.
They're about the same time. So I think those boys...
So it's not a sprint?
It's not a sprint, but it's not a mile or 5K or a 10K. It's that real, quite uncomfortable middle zone. So it takes us a minute 45. My personal best is a minute 44. I think some of those boys run 800 meters in a minute 43, I think. So it's that kind of middle distance. So you've got to go out quick. You've got to get your rate up, but then you need to have a finish. And that's why we do a lot of the aerobic stuff and also the anaerobic work. Whereas if I was a sprinter, I would do just real high-end stuff. Whereas if I was a 1,500 meter swimmer or a 10K swimmer, I'd do just low-level kind of aerobic work. So you need the best of both worlds. But in terms of heart rate, I mean, it'll go right up there from
190 level
start. I reckon so, because we're working anaerobically. So it's my threshold is around 170 beats per minute. So I can hold 170 pretty, not comfortably, but I can hold it for half an hour or 45 minutes, whatever it might be. So I start going above that, it's going to be anaerobic, and that's what my race is. So it'll be up there.
It was such an interesting experience for somebody that hasn't swam since school, just down there. I would have thought that, obviously I wouldn't have considered myself to be competitive against you, but, you'd kind of, being me, jump in the pool and think like, yeah, I can hammer 50 meters quite hard, but to be beaten by like over 30% over such a short distance is amazing. Like watching you dive in and swimming, you're so... would you use the term aerodynamic in the pool or not? A similar style of thing, obviously, aerodynamic on a bike, less wind resistance, less friction. Obviously being in a pool, is that the word?
Yeah, aerodynamic, hydrodynamic, same stuff. I think the thing is with when you're swimming is water's so much thicker and denser than air that a small reduction in drag has a much bigger impact than maybe on the bike or when you're running. So that's a big thing. So if you can, that's what I said when we were chatting before, actually, if you can make small technical changes, you'll see massive improvements. Whereas in running, everyone pretty much knows how to run. Everyone ran, if you play football or whatever you did, or you just pretty much everyone knows how to run. Swimming's much more technical, and those small changes can make a really, really big difference. So that's what I say when people are training for events or big swims or triathlons or definitely Ironmans. Obviously on the bike, you need to put those hours in. You know how to obviously train for running, but swimming, just do technical work, because that will make you so much more efficient, and you will literally just slip through the water like you were saying earlier.
It's also swimming on your own. So I did a kind of, as fast as I can go 50 on my own with just me to focus on and just kind of thrashing through the pool as hard as I could. And then raced you as well. And like that factor of having you in the pool with me and being able to see what you're doing was soul crushing. Like it was really disheartening.
I don't know what you're going to go for there.
Well, no, because do you know what I mean? It's when you're in the water and you're not comparing yourself to anyone else, or you've got no competition. Yeah. You're just going as hard as you can go. You're competing with yourself, and so you're in a bit of a different zone. When we dove in together, and you just shot through. You're like a seal or like an orca or something that is really slick and powerful. Or penguin, less powerful, I suppose. But
I'll go for orca. We'll stick with orca.
We'll stick with orca. We'll stick with orca. A dangerous orca. Just even, when we hit the water, me slowing down basically and trying to do that thing that you do where, you kind of, squid through the water for a period of time. And you were just gone. Like you were miles and miles ahead. And it's because of that incredible precision and that kind of technical ability that you've harbored over so many years. It's very impressive.
Yeah, but I think also like when you watch the Olympics and stuff, like we're all within half a second of each other, realistically. When I won the Olympics, it was by 4/100ths of a second. All these boys are going, if you're not going 1 minute 44, you're probably going 1 minute 45 in the final. It's all really, really close. So it looks like it's all pretty, similar. And that's why you always see these like tweets and they say, it's just chuck a normal person in that race, and you kind of get in a bit of an understanding. Like, look at when the guys run at the Olympics, you think, yeah, they're all kind of going pretty similar and stuff. I've got a friend who runs 5Ks, and he's like 14 minutes something, which is obviously a really impressive 5K time.
Wow.
And I was like, come on, let's just go and hit your 5K pace. I reckon I can stick with you for a few hundred meters. And it's like what you said, they just go, and it's that efficiency of someone who's been running their whole life or swimming their whole life, and you actually realize that there are kind of levels to it.
A 14-minute 5K pace. It is...
That's serious.
Well, it's sub 3-minute kilometers.
But then there are guys going 13 minutes, aren't there? There are guys going,
not very many.
But it puts it in perspective a little bit, doesn't it?
No, but it's crazy. Yeah, no, it is wild. For those listening who are enthusiastic runners, to put that into perspective, like a 17.5-minute 5K is a 3:30 pace. Holding a 3:30 pace for 5K is very good running. Do you know what I mean? And so to shave minutes off that time
is serious.
It's very, very serious. Of course, people come in all sorts of shapes and sizes and different athletic abilities.
He's made for it. Yeah.
But no, that is that's astounding stuff. Let's talk a bit about your very decorated career so far. And by the way, you were born in the year 2000, which makes you 25 years old.
Yeah, as of very recently, 25. Yes, sir.
It's what you've achieved in that time is incredible, and it must be such a welcome thought that you have such a long career ahead of you. Not to dampen the mood, but what would the lifespan of a typical very successful swimmer be? When do things begin to slow down?
I think it's getting older. It's definitely getting older. We spoke a little bit earlier about kind of data tracking and heart rate and lactic acids and that stuff, and nothing slips through the net now. Every meter we do is tracked. So I know how many meters I've done in a year, or a specific session, at what heart rate, what intensity, and what I'm specifically working on in that session. So I think for those reasons, athletes are getting older. The guys I'm racing on the relay team with now, one of them's 30, one of them's 28. This is what would typically be seen as quite old in the sport, but we're all going for LA in 2028. I would have just turned 28 then, and they'll be early 30s. But because of people training a lot smarter, then I think longevity in the sport is going to increase, which is exciting because I want to go to LA in 2028 and win more medals and defend titles. Before then we've got the Commonwealth Games next year in Glasgow, in the UK, so a home Commonwealth Games. I want to go and win more medals there, and I had a lot of fun doing that in 2022 in Birmingham. So yeah, I think I've been to 2 Olympic Games. I want to go to at least one more, and I definitely want to get out there and win more medals. I mean, you tried them on earlier. They feel quite nice when you put them on. So have a few more of those would be quite cool.
It's amazing stuff. Did you you successfully defended the 200 meter relay?
Yeah, yes.
So you've got that to defend again in LA.
Yeah. So no one's actually ever defended a 4x2 with the same team that did it in Olympics and then another one. So if we can do 3 on the trot, I think that'd be quite cool. So yeah, it's exactly the same guys in Tokyo as it was in Paris. And then all 4 of us, I saw them yesterday. Like I said, I was racing at the Olympic pool yesterday in a competition. A bit different to the race we just did.
And today you were dressed as a chicken.
Today I was dressed as a chicken. So, real both extremes, brings me right back down to earth. But yeah, they're all swimming quick and we're all doing well. And, touch wood, injury and illness, stay out of the equation. Then hopefully we can all be in LA and winning more medals. I want to go back and, win more individual medals, on my events as well. So yeah, I feel like I've had 2 Olympic Games. They've been great. I've loved them. But yeah, I've got plenty more I want to do.
What would be the balance between the logical, moral, emotional connection with that team were one of you to become a weaker link?
Swimming's a very black and white sport. If you're going slow, it says it on the board. It's not like football or rugby or, even like rowing where combinations make a big difference, and it's not as black and white. I think when you're swimming slowly, there's no 2 ways about it. You're not going to be on the team. If you look at the caliber of freestylers we've got in the UK right now, obviously, I've won the Olympics. We've got world champions. We've got Olympic silver medalists. It's a real tough group, and you've got to be on it to make that top 4. If you're in that 4x2, you're probably going to win a medal, and hopefully you're going to win gold. We won the World Championships, we won the Olympics, so it's a tough team to make. But yeah, if you slip off, you're going to be gone pretty quick. So it keeps everyone at a high level. And I think we all do kind of push each other on as well. And also we're all fighting for individual spots on that 200 meters. So 4 of us can do the relay, but only 2 of us can do the individual. So, back in Tokyo, I did it with Duncan, and then I've done the World Championships with Matt, and James has done it. So yeah, we're always fighting for these spots. But yeah, if you're off it, you're going to be off the team, unfortunately.
This is the new generation of wearable technology. I want to tell you why it matters so much to me. There was a time in my life where I needed to make some serious changes. But what I've since learned is that so many others have felt exactly the same way. Whether it's about sobriety, fitness, your career, or just finding a better path, that first step is always hard, but staying on the journey is even harder. Tools like Whoop can be incredibly powerful in ensuring that you stick on the right path. The all-new Whoop hardware is now smaller than ever, with 14 days plus of battery life, and comes with a host of powerful new features like health span, heart screener, and enhanced sleep performance insights. It's more than just a wearable. It gives you the data and guidance to stay accountable and keep moving forwards. From tracking sleep and recovery to helping you understand your body, Whoop gives you real insights that can absolutely make a difference. So if you're at that crossroads or already on your way, Whoop might just be the tool that helps you keep going. Click the link below for your first month free. I'm Spencer Matthews, and you're listening to Untapped, where we talk to the greatest athletes on the planet to learn and be inspired with the view to untap the potential that lies within all of us. Please do follow or subscribe to the show wherever you're listening so you don't miss all of our new episodes. We have some pretty incredible guests lined up, and your support really counts.
Where do you get your discipline from? Where does that come from? Who was your inspiration growing up? Who did you look up to when you were a young man, even younger than you already are?
Younger now, yeah, it's a good question. I think I know 2001. Swimming's one of those sports where it's a lot of hours from a young age. You think of swimmers, you think getting up before school and 5 o'clock in the morning, and that's because that's exactly what you have to do. So I trained before school and after school pretty much every day through my school years. I'm one of 5. I've got an older sister and then 3 younger siblings as well. And we all swam together, and we'd all go to the pool, get dropped off and, crack of dawn, 5 a.m. and you'd start training before and after school.
This pool, yeah?
It's changed the sites, but this swimming club here in Maidenhead, absolutely. So, I'd know that place like the back of my hand. It's one of those sports that requires years of dedication, a lot of hours. It's a tough sport. It's just the nature of the sport, because you can do so many hours. You have to, because everyone else is going to, essentially. So I think, my discipline and my drive, I think I couldn't do a sport other than swimming. I think because it's so black and white, where you get out exactly what you put in. It's what my mum always said to me. It's what I've seen through the sport. The harder you train and the more committed and disciplined you are, the lower the time on the board's going to be when you touch the wall. There's a real direct correlation. And that's what was kind of instilled in me from a young age. And I think I was always of the mindset that, I have this opportunity to try and be the best athlete I can. I'd be a fool to pass up on this opportunity. So, I just need to give it my absolute all. And my older sister was actually a real inspiration for me when we were growing up training together. And she was an incredible swimmer, went on and got a university scholarship and had a successful university career as a swimmer. But seeing what she did and thinking, if she can do it and if she can push herself like that, then, why not myself as well? And your peers play a big role, but your coach plays a massive role as well. I stayed with the same coach for 10 years here in Maidenhead, and then I've worked with a coach in Bath under Dave McNulty for the last 7 years. So having these kind of inspirational figures that you trust completely wholeheartedly, and you'll do exactly what's asked of you, and anything they say you will do to the best of your ability, because you trust them to have your journey in their hands. I think that's a rare and special relationship that not many people are fortunate enough to say they have. And my coach Dave at Bath, he always says, he sits down, he gives these big kind of rousing speeches, especially at the start of an Olympic year. He says, right, this is the Olympic shift. And he always says, 15, 20 years from now, you don't want to be pushing a trolley around Sainsbury's thinking, if only I'd given it a bit more when you had that opportunity. And I think it's made me realize doing 2 Olympic cycles, actually, it's a really short period of your life where you can be the best athlete you can. And it's pretty fleeting. And if you're not going to kind of seize it with both hands, I see people who train like 95, 96% of the way. And then maybe when the coach isn't looking, they'll skip it. And I'm kind of like, what are you here for, kind of thing? You might as well, if you're here, just really, really go for it. Because I want to retire and be like, I couldn't have given any more. And what you get is what you get, essentially. So that's always been a big driver for me. And I'm so fortunate I've had kind of other people around me who have had that same mindset to push me.
God, there's so much to go at from what you just said. It's a fantastic way of being generally. It's also just a super life lesson.
Yeah.
You know, in it's the same for anything really, isn't it? Relationships, business, friendship, you know, sports, athleticism. It's that's pretty moving. It might sound a bit silly, but I wasn't so aware of how important the coach's role is in having your journey in their hands. How much of it is down to them knowing what's best for you?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have, it's a tough sport and it's a tough journey. You have to have complete buy-in with your coach. You know, I sit down with my coach and we plan the year and I have input and stuff like that. But once we do that process, I'm basically saying, what you ask of me, I will deliver. If you say, give me 1,000 meters where your heart rate's 170 or 190, or push yourself to failure, or give me the highest lactic acid level you possibly can right now, I'm going to do it. It's very, very rare. And that's why I don't think I could ever be a coach. I could never have that level of responsibility, especially for age groupers, you know, for junior swimmers, when they're saying, you know, I'll do anything that kind of you ask of me. But I've always been really fortunate that I've had that trust. And to be a good coach, you know when to push and you know when to kind of tread the line, and you don't want to overwork your athlete. So it's walking that fine line. But if you can find a coach that you really have that absolute buy-in, you say, I'm basically following you into battle, essentially. That's what we're doing. We've got 4 years and I'm going to give you everything and he'll give me everything in return. You know, my coach always says, like, the Olympics is too big to take on by yourself. You know, you need that team around you. You need that coach and athlete. You know, he's seen me at my absolute highest. You see me when I was 21 and I won the Olympics, you know, for the first time. It was his first Olympic gold medal as a coach. It was my first, Olympic gold medal. He's seen me at my absolute lowest when things have gone terribly. And he said, look, you know, if I call him at 2 a.m. and I say, you know, my boiler's just exploded, I need you, he would be there in a shot, you know. And it's having that, because it's not just you clock in, you do 2 hours swimming and you go home. It's looking after young adults in a really important phase of their life and guiding, you know, he gets athletes when they're 18, they join the national centre, and guiding them through 10, 15 years of their life until they, you know, get married and have kids and move on with these big kind of parts of their life. And it's a really kind of crucial period. So yeah, the respect I have for my coaches and the journey we've been on. I've only had 2 coaches, Paul Lloyd here in Maidenhead and Dave McNulty, and I owe them my career completely.
They sound like fascinating men.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when you dedicate your time in its entirety and your life in many ways to these coaches, and you do exactly what they say and you turn up on time and you give 110%, and you really lay yourself, you strip yourself bare, giving everything you can, and then you still come up short? Obviously you've won, you've got golds, you've been to the highest level of the sport, but you don't always win.
Mm-hmm.
What does it feel like to come second after just so much intense training and giving everything to the sport?
Yeah, look, like you said, I've won. I've been really fortunate, but I have come up short a few times. You know, the World Championships in 2023 was probably one of the best shapes of my life I've ever been in, and the 200 meter freestyle is my chance to become world and Olympic champion. And I came second by 2/100ths of a second, and it's so tough to look up at that clock, and like you said, because it's so black and white, but I just wasn't good enough on the day. And I think, you know, to really understand it, you have to kind of paint a full picture of what it takes to kind of do this training and what it takes to give your all to it, because people see the really tough training, like the lactic acid training, the people being sick on poolside and all this kind of stuff. But actually, one of the hardest things is you can never switch off from it, because it's everything. It's as soon as you finish, it's recovery, it's what you're eating, it's whether you're getting good sleep, it's whether you're walking too many steps on a weekend when you're trying to spend time with friends and family or your partner. You know, it's whether you should go to a social activity because there might be a risk of illness, or whether it causes a travel which can increase fatigue. It's all these kind of things. So it's a job you can never quite switch off from. And that's actually the toughest part. People think the training's the toughest part, but I'm a big believer that anyone can go and do a hard training session or lift loads in the gym and stuff like that. It's when it's like a really, really tough week and it's the back end and you have to be so strict with yourself and you want to just kind of switch off slightly, but you know that it could cost you those 2/1000s of a second or a kind of a fingertip on an important race. So I think when you do come up a bit short, it's tough, but something that I take a lot of solace in is knowing that I've given it all. I can put my hands up and say, there is no more I could have possibly done. And that's something that I always want to kind of take through my career, because I never want to look back and think, I lost that race. And I know that back in February, I had a week or I had a couple of days where I let it slip, and that could have correlated. I'm not saying it's a direct correlation, of course, that's crazy, but like, who knows what factors could be at play that mean you just come up a bit short. But if you give absolutely everything and you commit to this one cause fully and wholeheartedly, not 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like I said, not 95%, fully going for it, and you do come up just a slight bit short, there's nothing more I could have done. So I think that's something that really helps me. And then also learnings, you take a lot of learnings from that. I look back at that race and I think, I was out 50.8, so 50 seconds, 0.8 to 100 meters. I probably could have been out 50.6 or 50.5, so maybe a fraction of a second quicker. And that maybe would have kind of pushed me more in the right direction. I think I had a little bit more on the back end maybe, but, you can kind of drive yourself crazy sometimes thinking, what if? But, I'll take second in the world kind of most days of the week, but when it's that close, it's a bit tough.
I was just going to say, is that level of detail, can that feel a bit unhealthy? Do you ever let your hair down when you're... I'm not suggesting it is unhealthy, by the way. I'm just curious. What does that do to your mental thought process, your mental health even? Like having to consider, where you're ordering your food from?
Mm-hmm. I think I put my biggest wins down to the fact that, my full commitment to the job at hand and years of being absolutely solely focused on one thing. That's really great. That's really important. I'm so lucky that I can say that my job is focusing on swimming as quick as I can at Olympic Games. Like, very few people get to say that. So I count my lucky stars that I can say I have one sole focus. Because oftentimes people have a job and then they'll have maybe a fitness goal and then maybe I've got one thing that I'm driven on. That's great. It can become a bit unhealthy and it can become a bit obsessive. And unfortunately, the nature of the job means other things have to fall to the side slightly and full second, and be that relationships, be that social interactions, be that time with friends. The toughest thing for me is time with family. I've got brothers and sisters who are moving to new cities, who are graduating from university and having to say no to, my sister's going to become a doctor from Oxford in July. I've got to miss her graduation because I'm at the World Championships. That's not easy. These are big life things that, only come around once. And that's the toughest part of the job. I think when things aren't going your way and you're being almost too hyper obsessive, that's when it can become slightly unhealthy. And I've felt myself going that way slightly. I think also a lot of times I've seen athletes who put too much on, they say my diet has to be absolutely, I need to, I've seen guys who've weighed out every almond that they're eating, and saying this is going to be the thing that's going to make me, and actually you've got much bigger gains. You could be doing much better training. You could be training much smarter. This isn't going to make you, make the big difference. You have to have that, real specific focused diet, but it's not ever going to be a supplement for tough training. So it's knowing where to expend your energy and where to focus. And then the letting a hair down bit's really important as well. You have to have those times to really, really switch off. And when I switch off, I don't even look at a swimming pool. I don't go anywhere near it. I don't go in the gym. I don't do anything. I'm completely off, because when I'm on, I'm completely, there is no, I hate like this no man's land. Yeah. I'm kind of doing a bit of training, being slightly invested in the racing, but also I'm not going all in. I never ever want to be like that. So if it's Olympic year, I'm making this Olympic shift, I'm all in. If, like after Paris, when I finished the Olympics, I said, right, I'm having 6 months. I'm not doing anything. I'm not even looking at a pool. I'm not going in the gym. I'm not going to go for a run. I'm really switching off, because I know that I've got 3.5 years from January 2025 until LA 2028 where I'm fully switched back on. So it's understanding that contrast, and it's knowing when you're off, I'm off, and you having a coach that appreciates that and will say, right, you've got 3 weeks in August, switch off, don't even look at a pool, get yourself away, have a beer, go out and have a meal, stay up late. 1st of September, you're back in and we're on it, and you're making that Olympic shift. So the contrast is really important as well.
This is an advertisement from BetterHelp. As men, we're taught to tough it out, hide stress, push through and never let it show. But realistically, bottling it up doesn't make it disappear. You can't kick problems down the road. You have to be proactive and take action. True strength is knowing when to ask for help, and therapy can be a great resource to gain the clarity and tools to work through life's challenges. I wouldn't be in the mental place that I am today if I didn't do the work with trained professionals, both physically and mentally. Think of your therapist as a spotter in the gym. It's not about weakness. It's about having the right support to lift heavier and lift more frequently. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/untapped. That's betterhelp.com/untapped.
When you're tired, dehydrated, and struggling to concentrate, making smart decisions gets a little tough. That's why I take Vitals by Heights every single day. Initially, my team recommended it to me to keep me firing on all cylinders because it's not just about keeping my legs moving, it's about keeping my brain switched on and ideally making better life choices. Vitals are packed with 20 essential nutrients, including omega-3s for brain power, B vitamins for energy, and vitamin D3, all formulated by scientists and dietitians. And it just gives me that extra edge, better focus, sharper thinking, sustained energy, faster recovery, and deeper sleep. All in 2 capsules a day. Vitals are the smartest way to fuel your body and mind, so give it a go. Get 20% off your first month subscription at heights.com/untapped or use code UT20 at checkout. How close to the limits of human potential in pools, swimming, are we? Because it suddenly occurred to me because, truth be told, I think you probably can see that I'm not a swimmer, but it's something I haven't spent a long time thinking about, but you've got kind of no kit at all helping you. It is a human being versus other human beings. It's talent, it's effort, and natural ability, obviously, in the water against each other. There's nothing really that is getting in the way of this raw data that you keep talking about. How is it that records keep getting broken? Why are people getting faster?
Yeah. It's a good question. It's something I think about a lot, actually, is, who's going to break Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record? How fast can people actually run? The equipment thing's an interesting one. So actually back in the day, and before 2010, there used to be full body racing suits. I don't know if you remember Ian Thorpe. He had like the full, it looked like a wetsuit. And then Michael Phelps would race in the ones and it was like a zip up one. And then it had full leg suits and stuff like that. If you saw white racing, it was just the kind of, it has to be before your knee now. So they've been banned. So they were called super suits. So they're now illegal. So they would they would hold, I think it's like a layer of air under the suit and it would hold you higher in the water. And it felt apparently like you were swimming downhill. That's what people said. So when people had these super suits on, it felt like you were swimming downhill. It's for that reason that records are still getting broken. But in my event, the 200 meters, for example, so when I won the Olympics, that was the British record. So it's still the British record and it's 1 minute 44.2. The world record's 1 minute 42. So it's over 2 seconds quicker, which is insane, and you think surely with our training methods and our data, people are swimming quicker, it would be, but the super suits made such a massive difference, especially in the freestyle events, those middle distance freestyle events, that no one's broken that world record since 2009. So equipment plays a big role in it, but also, like I said, data tracking, training methods are getting smarter, nutrition, nothing slips through the net now. There's no, people used to call it garbage yardage. So you swim, you think you're doing the right thing, but you're not sure if you're right heart rate or lactic acid levels and all this kind of stuff. So training's getting smarter. But I think the same thing. Surely we're starting to get to the point where humans cannot, like you said, equipment can't play a massive role. You look at the carbon plate shoes, for lots of marathon runners, and obviously you'll know just a lot better than I do how much of a difference they make, I imagine.
Huge. No, but okay, yeah. So at your level, all of the margins are much smaller, much tighter. Everything's 100th of a second here. At my level, I can shave minutes probably off my 5K time, were I to focus solely on that. So it does make a massive difference. If you take, an ordinary running shoe and compare it to a Nike Alpha Fly 3 or a Adizero Pro 4, it's a different sport. Like you are aided in ways that you wouldn't have thought possible if you've never worn one.
Yeah.
It's literally propelling you forward. There's a carbon plate strapped to your foot with massive padding. And it's essentially, it changes the whole dynamic of the way you run. And they weigh 42 grams or something stupid. It's like a sock.
Yeah.
And it's like literally, and if you're running forwards and you've not worn them ever, you may look at them and go, oh, well, they're 400 pounds. I'm never going to buy a pair of those. If you're serious about your running, it's going to make a very big difference, especially if you're, not elite level, if you're kind of a good runner.
Yeah.
Like not famously, I was about to say, famously in my family, my brother James ran, I think, a 3:03 marathon.
Wow. Yeah.
This is years ago, like long before the super shoe. And I said to him, you should you should strap on a pair of super shoes
Yeah.
and just go and, I was like, you'll break 3 if you did a bit of training,
yeah.
because he's slim and he used to be a great runner. And he said, it's not going to make a big difference. I was like, I reckon you'll shave 10 minutes off your marathon time.
Crazy.
Yeah. And he said, really? So I bought him these Alpha Flies anyway for a gift. And he's not necessarily going to go and run a marathon again, but he will, it'll light up his face when he runs in them for the first time, because you won't believe it. You'll look down at your watch thinking you're running a 4:30 kilometer and you'll be running a 3:50.
Yeah.
And you just go, what?
It's crazy. It's like the super suits. I've never worn one.
I was about to ask you that. I can't believe you've never worn one.
No, I've never even seen one, to be honest with you.
Wouldn't you just try one for the fun of it?
I don't know. I don't know where to get one. They obviously don't make them anymore.
Let's see if we can get him a super suit.
They stopped that. Yeah, I went to one of the last competitions in 2010. I remember I was a little kid and I went along with one of my friends to watch one of the last events, and they stopped them. So it's exactly the same. Apparently you put one on and you feel like you're floating above the water. It's insane. So a few of those world records still stand. But then even with training, and doing the best block of training, I've gone 1 minute 44.2. I've gone 1 minute 44.3. I still think I've got more in me. I still think if you can execute the exact perfect race, I can shave off a few more tenths of a second. So, how fast can people go? I think it's a great question. And with training and data, and we were speaking about sleep tracking, that wasn't around 15 years ago. People didn't wear wearables all the time, did they? So that's going to change the game. Yeah, it'll be interesting, but I think the margins are undoubtedly getting finer and finer.
And what about people who previously have doped and the enhanced games now? I know from speaking to you briefly earlier that you're not a fan of the enhanced games. Let's just talk about it, briefly. Obviously, it's not fair to clean athletes. As a separate thing, what's your opinion of it?
Yeah, loads of people are talking about it at the moment. People who don't watch swimming are talking about it, because obviously there's been a big social media push recently where a swimmer supposedly broke the world record. He was wearing the super suits and he'd been taking performance-enhancing drugs.
Are they allowed to wear the super suits?
Well, they're allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to push the limits of human possibility is their whole strapline. So people are coming up to me and talking to me about it. I've got quite a few issues with it, though. I think first of all is, as a swimmer and someone who's trained their whole life, I think the real big issue that it's a bit personal is actually how much kind of investment and input and social media impact it's having as something that it's cheating in our sport. It is illegal, obviously, to take performance-enhancing drugs, and it's something I'd really implore our governing body to do more to make the sport of swimming exciting, so that people are coming up to me in the street saying, wow, did you see this swim that this guy went in Australia, or did you watch the 100 meters freestyle at the Olympics or the World Championships? So that's something that's actually quite sad, is seeing that more people are kind of invested in this. It's not even sport. It's cheating. It's doing something that's not allowed in the traditional sense of sport. So I really wish governing bodies and organisations and investment would do more to get people really enthused about the actual sport of swimming. Secondly, I think I worry obviously about the health impacts on these people who are taking these performance-enhancing drugs. I worry about health impacts of anyone taking drugs. I think it's dangerous. And that kind of leads me on to my final point, which is how many young kids are going to be watching this, seeing the guy who got given $1 million for going that supposed world record, and thinking, wow, that's the way to do it. That's the way to earn money in the sport of swimming. I use those inverted commas because it's not really swimming, is it? That's the way to do it. That's what I should be doing, and start to kind of go down that route. And they think, these are my heroes, these guys who are getting paid these big bucks, almost like footballer money and stuff like that, and thinking that's cool, that's what I want to do. And actually, you've got people who've dedicated their lives to the sport of swimming to really push, the human level. Like I said, I've worked every day for the last 15, 20 years, never ever even remotely touched anything that could be suggested as performance enhancing. Like I said, it's like, I've got my porridge in the morning. That's what really gets me up for training and stuff like that. And then you see this, and I think, how many young kids on social media, because it's got this massive social media push, are going to be watching thinking, yeah, that's what I want to do. And I've seen some figures already that, the biggest audience is like, I don't know whether this is true or not, but 13 to 16-year-old children who are watching these guys do this enhanced game stuff. I think it's really, really wrong. I'm really, really against it, and I think I don't want to be. And my sport, that's I've loved my whole life. I don't want anything, any ties to it at all. I don't want to be associated to it in the slightest. The clean athletes, the one who have committed to their lives to it, these are the real heroes that people should be looking up to.
I think that is the case, is it not? Like I think noise on social media is often, few people that make a lot of noise. And on the outside, you kind of look at something and you feel that it's hyped and being spoken about, but it's never going to be the Olympics.
No, it won't. It really won't. I like I said earlier, it's kind of like I'm a big boxing fan. Like I love my boxing, and I imagine if I was a young amateur boxer coming up through the ranks, and maybe you've just done an Olympics, you're trying to turn pro, and you see guys who are YouTubers and stuff like that going and doing these fights and earning crazy amounts of money, you'd probably be quite frustrated. You think, God, I'm a better boxer than they are. I'm training all this time. And then you could say, well, but it's the social media, it's the promotion, all that kind of stuff. But there's still an argument there where it's bringing eyes to the sport. People will appreciate how difficult boxing is and how technical it is, and it'll probably help the whole sport of boxing. I think this is too far of a deviation from the actual sport of swimming, where this is what we do, this is how hard we train, this is what we put ourselves through. I don't think this is going to have that same kind of knock-on effect, unfortunately. It's going to just really frustrate and upset a lot of athletes who have committed their lives to it. And I would just love to see that same push and same kind of level of promotion and excitement around the actual sport of swimming.
It's never going to be seen as the same records, though, is it? So, for example, if your British 200-meter record was broken by an enhanced athlete, that isn't breaking your record, surely.
But I think it kind of casts a shadow over it.
Yeah.
And people say, well, yeah, your British record holder, but he did do that. And I'm like, you can say, yeah, but I'm a clean athlete. I can 100% put my hands up and say I'm a 100% clean athlete. But if there's someone out there doing that, and I've got a really close friend, Ben Proud, who's a 50-meter freestyle Olympic medalist, world champion, Commonwealth champion, and he's knocked on the door of world records. He's been right there, tenths, hundredths of a second behind it, and then he sees this, and I know how much that will have hurt him, because he's seeing someone who's getting all this massive recognition and money and. By cheating, it's not right. It's really, really not right. And I think the more it grows, the more I worry about the impact it's going to be having.
Where is it heading? So what is it currently? It's called the Enhanced Games. Yeah. Where can you find it? What is it? Like, sorry, I'm a bit naive to it. No. I obviously see it on socials the same as you, but is it like an Olympic format?
I actually don't. I couldn't even tell you, to be honest. I saw one video of a guy doing a 50-meter front crawl race, supposedly breaking the world record. Don't even know where the pool was. Don't even know what the officials were. I don't even know if it was a full 50
Massive
meter.
Dude.
Massive guy. Yeah, exactly. And you're thinking, I don't know. I know a coach. He was a coach. He did a podcast stuff like that, and he's now supposedly become the head coach of this Enhanced Games. None of it sits right with me. I've heard they're doing some kind of event, and it's going to be kind of getting bigger and bigger. But yeah, I just think it's taking the. It's not even taking the sport, because it's not swimming. That's not what we do. That's not what any of us want to be associated with. So I really do worry about where it's heading, to be honest with you.
What do you think can be done to bring more eyes into swimming that deserves the high praise and recognition for the effort that's made for clean athletes?
See, that's the exact question that should be getting asked when people see this. It shouldn't be, it should be, right, what can we really do? This is what World Aquatics and Aquatics GB should be thinking, right, how can we make the sport of actual swimming really exciting, drawing crowds? Because look, every child pretty much swims, and I know it's something we're going to talk about in a little while, how it's, water safety, and it's a life skill. Every parent wants their child to swim. It's got a massive user base around the UK of kids in swimming clubs. It's a really, really big sport. It's one of the most popular sports at the Olympic Games. How can we make it exciting and make it a spectacle and make it draw crowds? A few things are being done. A few competitions are heading in that direction. A few years ago, we had something called the International Swimming League, which unfortunately, it didn't quite pan out, but that was exciting. And that was kind of like, there was a draft and there were head-to-heads, and it went kind of traveled, and good prize money for athletes, which is obviously, when you have something on the line. You look at different sports, triathlon have got like a league essentially where they travel around. You look at like Cricket have changed it, with the 100, all this kind of stuff. The rugby sevens, shorter, faster pace. You need your traditional, you need your Olympics, you need your World Cups and things like that. But having these events, I think there could be more done for the sport of swimming to actually get the athletes who have been working on it their whole careers the recognition they deserve, because these are the people that these are my heroes. I look up to swimmers. I'm a swimming fan as well as a swimmer myself. And I look up to Michael Phelps. I look up to my teammates, Ben Proud, Duncan Scott. And I think, God, these are real heroes for what they've done. And they deserve the recognition they should be getting. I was fortunate enough to meet him after the Paris Olympic Games, actually. And he's a hero of mine. I know people say don't meet your heroes. I loved meeting him. He was lovely. It was really, really nice. It was great to meet him. He does do that visualization thing, actually. And that's a really interesting point. I did see that clip. I was like a little kid when I met him, because I was sat there in an event. They were full of Olympic champions and stuff like that. And he walked in and it's just like everyone becomes little kids again. And swimming fans, because we're all swimming fans. He's the Tiger Woods. He's the Michael Jordan of our sport. So to see him and what he's done, and he actually offered me quite a good bit of advice, and support. And he said, anything you need leading up to the LA Olympics, his home Olympics, of course. He said, just get in touch.
Wow.
Which was mega. So for him to do that, was incredible, because I'm so lucky. I have like young swimmers coming up to me and maybe ask for words of advice or a photo or something like that. So for me to go to someone like him who must get that times 1,000, and for him to take the time of day and offer his advice and support was really quite special.
Well, you must get in touch, even if you don't need any advice.
There we go. I'm going to ask him, how do you win a race in a chicken soup? Because that's what I need to visualize more of, I reckon.
Oh, by the way, you were a phenomenal sport doing that for an Olympic legend such as yourself to wear a chicken suit and race such an amateur on your home turf, no less, was in front of a home crowd.
In front of a home crowd. No, it was a big race. It was a big race. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. That lady was quite rough with you after.
I know. She said how it was. You lost. Straight up. You lost. And I was like, well, you're not wrong.
She walked past, she was like, you lost. He was like, yeah, she's like still in his dripping wet chicken suit.
Got a big chicken head on top.
Yeah, I know. Like, I'm wearing a chicken
I'm
suit.
looking around myself. I know exactly.
Yeah,
it says how it is, but keeps me grounded.
But that's no. It was very kind of you, and it was just incredible to see you in action. That was eye-opening, even though I was underwater at the time. I was literally, I couldn't believe just how imagine just if you're listening to this and you can't see us smiling, imagine diving into the pool, right? Like in a race, and then just kind of opening your eyes and Tom is just 10 meters ahead of you, like already. Like I was literally like, how? Just jumped in at the same time as me. So amazing stuff.
Oh, pleasure.
You wanted to talk about children.
Yes.
And a cause that's close to your heart?
Yeah, completely. No, absolutely. And it's pretty apt that we're here in Maidenhead, the swimming club that I grew up swimming at for 10 years and where I did some kind of swimming lessons as well. One thing I've been really, really passionate about, and we spoke about it earlier, how many kids swim, every parent wanting their child to learn to swim, the only sport that can save your life. All these things are so true. One thing that I've realized since going to these 2 Olympic Games actually is how many people are affected by swimming, but also by water safety, by a lot of drownings that happen in the UK, over 100 drownings in the UK last year. And what really kind of blew me away is how more and more children are leaving school unable to swim. Now, I'm not saying everyone needs to be an Olympic athlete, but the fact that, for example, you can go into a pool, you can go on holiday, you can swim in a sea, you can swim in a lake, you'll be okay, you're confident, you've got that degree of water safety. Every child is supposed to leave school being able to have that level of confidence. Every parent should know that when their child leaves primary school, they can swim 25 meters, they've got that level of water safety. Fewer and fewer children are doing that. And it's something that's really, really close to my heart. And as much as we've spoken about performance and diet, nutrition, Olympics, stuff like that, this is a cause that I'm actually really, really passionate about. It's something I've wanted to try and make a difference in this space. And it took me a long time to figure out how I could do that. I went to Tokyo Olympics, and then after getting a bit more coverage and meeting great people off the back of it, I made me realize, right, this is a cause I want to make a difference in it. It took me those 3 years actually in the lead up to the Paris Olympics to build something, which has been the Tom Dean Swim Schools. It's a network of swim schools we've launched around the UK. The first one's actually here in Maidenhead, which was quite cool. It's like a bit of a full circle moment. And And we launched after the Paris Olympics. I was like, I really want to do this. And I said to the team I did it with, I was like, I really want to do it while I'm actually still competing and still racing, so that I can go to World Champs, Commonwealth Games, hopefully LA Olympics, and win more medals, and be able to, fingers crossed, and be able to stand there and say, I'm doing this, but actually I'm trying to make a real difference with water safety and getting more kids to learn to swim. And that's what we've been doing. So we've got a great network now. We've got some incredible teachers. We've got loads of kids who are going through our swimming lessons every day. I'm going to do some filming with some of the teachers soon, which I'm really, really excited by. And it's a cause I'm super passionate about. We've got a great partnership. We're doing stuff with the Royal Foundation. We're doing 1,000 completely free learn to swim packages, which we're going to start rolling out. Leisure centres are unfortunately closing. Everyone knows a pool that seems to have closed near them. Fewer and fewer kids are able to access it. Water safety is definitely something that should be taught to all children so they can leave school, and we know that they can be confident around, we're like 2 minutes from the River Thames here. I grew up close to the river. I know, unfortunately, these tragic stories where people have drowned, children in a school in the same village I went to, passing away from drowning because they don't have this water safety and this level of water confidence. It's absolutely tragic. We were speaking about a case earlier today, and I'm sure it's every parent's worst nightmare. You want your child to be safe in the water, and it's something I really want to try and make a difference in.
Please let us know how we can help at Untapped, and from me on a personal level, I'd love to push the Tom Dean Swim School on my socials, and in these show notes we'll certainly put a link so that people can check out the incredible work that you're doing. I can't thank you enough for your time.
No, thank you.
It's been a great pleasure coming to your hometown and swimming with you. One last question maybe. Do you have any tips for me? I'm going away in October to try and complete a few, 7 quite long triathlons, one in each continent. It's got a fair amount of swimming for me.
Yeah.
3.8 kilometers in each of the 7 continents. My confidence over that distance right now today is pretty low. So I'd love to hear from a legend such as yourself, just a couple of tips of something that I can think about when I'm next swimming.
Well, your confidence should not be low at all, because I've seen you swim. So I would definitely take a lot of confidence from what you already have. Great thing is, you've got a great level of fitness already. That's what people really struggle with. Because it's a sport where you have to time your breathing, people can get quite panicky if they're not very fit and they're not aerobically great. You're obviously sorted in that department. A few small things I would say. Timing for the breathing. Here we go. The list begins now, doesn't it?
Hang on a sec.
A few small things while we're on it.
And just a couple of pointers.
Just a few bullet points. It's going to be your breathing, to be honest, because it's nearly a 4,000 meter swim. So you're just going to lock in. You want to be efficient because you're going to have a long time in the saddle after that. And obviously, the marathon will be tough, but that's your bread and butter. So breathing is going to be a big thing. Having that efficiency and just being comfortable with kind of getting into a routine and locking in. There were a few small things on your catch that I saw, but you're not going to be swimming like a sprint like you did there. So look, if you can be more efficient, it will help you massively for the next 2 parts. There we go. All this stuff.
It's kind of like the pulling in of the kind of marble cake.
Exactly.
Yeah, delicious.
Perfect. So just the catch. I'll tell you what we should do. We should do a session together, and there'll be a few drills, I'm sure, and hopefully it should make a real difference. So we'll get that booked in.
I'd really love that. And,
sure.
And again, just anything we can do to help with the swim school, please let me know. I'd love to support you and it. And thanks again.
Thank you very much.
If you loved the episode, please don't forget to follow and subscribe to Untapped wherever you're listening or watching, and check out our previous episodes, some of which include Ben Stokes, Mo Farah, and Alex Honnold, to name a few. Our YouTube channel is also full of epic challenges that I've taken on, including racing in a pool against Tom Dean, which we referenced at the start of the episode, and when I ran for 24 hours straight around the Battersea track. So do head over there and watch all of those as well. Thanks again, and see you soon.